Nevertheless, Friday's looking remarkably similar, and Saturday is too.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton, and breaking tonight. As British intelligence claims Putin's forces have largely stalled, a Ukrainian presidential advisor has warned Moscow that trying to take Kiev would be suicide. Alexei Arestovich also gave hope that the active hostilities between the two sides could end in 2 to 3 weeks. But is Liz Truss right to be concerned France and Germany will let Putin off the hook as they push for peace talks with the Kremlin? Plus, is President Zelensky's decision to ban certain opposition parties a mistake that could see Ukraine face similar condemnation from the West as Russia? We'll debate those topics and give you a first look at how tomorrow's newspapers are covering the crisis and the media buzz from 10. Why is having a healthy dose of cynicism about the running of Ukraine being equated to supporting an illegal invasion killing thousands of civilians? And is the free speech averse mainstream media to blame? Well, Baroness Claire Fox gives her unmissable analysis on that in Uncancelled at 10:40. As the war in Ukraine deepens, the biggest cost of living crisis in a generation, why is Rishi Sunak refusing to spike his tax hike? I'll implore the Chancellor to save Britain and resist turning us into a high-tax socialist state to pay for the monumental mistake of lockdown. That's in my digest. Then my superstar panel give their take tonight. I'm joined by former Daily Star editor Dawn Neeson, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Why are Ramonas so ready to adorn Ukrainian flags and support its sovereignty after spending 6 years blasting Brexiteers as xenophobes for showing any pride in our country? Brendan O'Neill explores the shallowness and hypocrisy of liberals who have been supporting Ukraine while attacking Brexit. He backs Boris, by the way, for his statement. That's at 9:30. Why were the mainstream media hell-bent on pushing COVID hysteria and ignoring the costs of lockdown? Well, former Sky and ITV News executive Mark Sharman pulls back the curtain as my lockdown inquiry continues at 10:20. These forthright comments from freed British Iranian prisoner Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe have sparked outrage in some quarters.
I've been told many times that I'm gonna be taken home, but that never happened. I mean, how many foreign secretaries does it take for someone to come home? 5?
But is she really wrong for criticising the British government? Well, Iranian-born political YouTuber Maya Tusi, who personally suffered at the hands of Iran's cruel regime, thinks Nazanin should take some personal responsibility for visiting the oppressive state in the first place. But human rights lawyer David Haig, who's freed several Brits jailed aboard, thinks her anger is totally justified. So they're going to do battle at 9:20 tonight. Here's Wills and Kate, as you've never seen them before, as they scuba dive during their tour of the Caribbean. Nice work for some, isn't it, if you can get it? But with the insatiable liberal sharks circling over Britain's colonial past, should the UK repay Jamaica and apologise for its role in slavery, as protesters are demanding? Well, GBNews star Darren Grimes asks where this retrospective madness ends. He's the outsider at 9:45. After a 14-year-old girl tragically died while riding an e-scooter, should they be banned from our roads before any more deaths? We'll debate that in the media buzz at 10:30. And as ever, brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass revealed before the end of the show. So do stay up with us. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. Ben Wallace was having a very good war, with steadfast planning for many months behind the scenes, allowing the UK to provide much-needed military support to Ukraine. And then those pesky Russian comedy pranksters, probably backed by Putin, let's be honest, convinced the Defence Secretary, who was working from Poland at the time, that he was speaking to the Ukrainian Prime Minister, and then released this video that UK government officials insist has been dishonestly doctored.
Anti-tank weapons, since those delivered earlier often fail, so that was problems for our country.
Ours have. I don't think ours have failed. I've got the details of ours. We've given you over 4,000. We've got more coming.
Yeah, right.
We're running out of our own. But I speak to Minister Reznikov or text him every day.
Now, it's very difficult to blame Mr. Wallace for such a gaffe. And he soon figured out he was being pranked and stopped the call before more damaging revelations were made. But it should be a stark warning to government officials that we're in the midst of an information war. There's propaganda and dirty tricks coming from both sides, all angles, and we must be wise to this very modern type of warfare so more British military secrets are not spilled online. My superstar panel here in just a moment, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, she loves it, Dawn Neeson is here, making his return. We've missed him, the Conservative commentator Kelvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. But keeping us updated with all of the news headlines throughout the show, Ray Addison.
Thanks, Dan. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The Sir David Amess murder trial has heard the accused threaten to kill 4 more people after he attacked the MP. The court was shown CCTV of the suspect, Ali Harbi Ali, travelling to Sir David's constituency in Essex in October last year. A 999 call made by Yvonne Eves, who had an appointment to see the MP, was later played to the jury.
Police, please, quick now. The man is wielding a knife. He's threatened me. He's killed. He's killed David Amess at Belfast Methodist Church. But we need an ambulance as well. He wants to get shot, apparently. He wants to be a hero. He wants the police to come and shoot him.
Who? Well, the person with the knife?
Yes. Yes. You need an armed response unit here.
We have, yeah.
He's coming. You can get in around the back of the church, apparently.
The voice of Yvonne Eves there. Ukraine's president has issued more dire warnings about the deteriorating situation in his country. 300,000 people trapped in the occupied city of Kherson are said to be running out of food and medical supplies. Russian forces are being accused of blocking humanitarian corridors and preventing supplies from reaching the city of Mariupol. The United States has strongly condemned what it's called Russia's orchestration of a sham trial against Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. It comes after a court found him guilty of large-scale fraud and sentenced him to a further 9 years in a maximum security prison. Navalny, one of President Putin's most prominent critics, is already serving a 2.5-year sentence for parole violations. State Department spokesperson Ned Price says the decision was another example of the Kremlin's widening crackdown on dissent.
This disturbing decision, the one announced today, is another example of the Russian government's widening crackdown on dissent and freedom of expression, which is intended to hide the Kremlin's brutal war and unprovoked war against Ukraine.
The RMT union has accused P&O Ferries of blackmail after the company announced it's offering sacked staff more than £36 million in compensation. The payouts will be linked to their period of service, with 40 of the 800 employees set to receive more than £100,000 each. But the RMT says if staff don't sign up, giving away their right to take the case to an employment tribunal, they'll receive a fraction of the amount. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have been filmed diving off the coast of Belize as they continued their royal tour of the Caribbean, marking the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. William and Kate donned scuba gear to check out the second largest barrier reef in the world. The trip came ahead of a visit to Jamaica, where there's been protests. Campaigners are calling for the British monarchy to pay reparations for slavery and apologise for human rights abuses. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Rishi Sunak consistently and constantly likes to assure us he is a low-tax Tory. But the reality of our current financial predicament, marked by 2 years of devastating restrictions to the economy thanks to largely unnecessary lockdowns, doesn't actually suggest he's telling the truth. In fact, the tax burden on everyday Brits is now at the highest level in 70 years. Tomorrow, the Chancellor has an opportunity to change that. There's a war in Ukraine, massive energy shortages and soaring inflation, all leading to the biggest cost of living crisis in a generation. But for some unbelievable reason, he still intends to go ahead with a 1.25% increase to national insurance, with the proceeds funneled into the forever expanding NHS black hole, and eventually he insists social care. What utter madness when it's the high-tax Labour Party trying to save the Chancellor from himself. There's growing evidence this tax increase isn't even financially necessary, with economists for Goldman Sachs estimating the state has acquired an extra £45 to £75 billion through taxes and a growing economy. No wonder true blue Tories are pulling their hair out. The Daily Telegraph reports today that cabinet ministers and senior Tories have made a last-ditch appeal to Rishi, who doesn't feel quite so dishy these days, right, to spike the hike. At least 5 cabinet ministers are backing a deferral or wiping it out for lower-paid workers, the most likely option, I think, to be announced in tomorrow's spring budget statement. As one cabinet minister told the newspaper anonymously, there are a number of us who aren't very happy about the NI rise. It is not uniformly popular in the cabinet nor in the party. Some Tory MPs have been brave enough to speak out publicly, though. Philip Davies said the Chancellor should delay it. If you don't believe in cutting taxes during a cost of living crisis, then when are you going to cut taxes? It is absolutely imperative that we don't go ahead with this NI rise. It would be a big mistake of gigantic proportions. Sir John Redwood, he said, cancel the NI rise, cancel VAT on domestic fuel, cancel VAT on green products, and give a bit back on fuel duty. To Peter Bone, who said, I am absolutely against the increase in NI. It's a tax on jobs. It should not be something a Conservative Chancellor should be doing. Now, it's so easy, isn't it? So easy to blame the current economic quagmire on the war, which certainly hasn't helped global markets. But anti-lockdown folk like me have been warning for the past 2 years the grave consequences of shutting down the global economy. And here we are. How depressing that Rishi thinks moving towards a socialist, big state, high tax model is the answer. Because trust me, that's never the answer. To respond now, my superstar panel. Former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reed. Well, Calvin, you've been away a few weeks, so let me come to you first. What's going on with Rishi Sunak?
It's good to be back, Dan. And I have no idea what's going on with this low-tax Tory who wants to increase taxes. It's very, very simple. Cut an I, cut the VAT, excuse me, and save money for people. Let people keep more of the money that they are earning. That's the best way to get out of a cost of living crisis. Not to give rebates, not to find extra public money to spend, but let people keep the money that they are earning themselves. And that's how you drive up the GDP.
I mean, Dawn, it is very interesting, isn't it, that Rishi Sunak keeps insisting to us, we are a low-tax party. We will decrease taxes. I'm sorry, if this isn't the moment, Rishi, then when is the moment?
Well, quite. I mean, you know, how can you be a low-tax party when we're paying the most tax we have for 70 years? I agree with Calvin. Let's increase the amount of money that people can earn before they start paying tax, raise the upper limit, concentrate on taxing big companies who are dodging tax, and we know who they all are in this country. That's the way to drive the economy. We want to get the economy kick-started again. The economy that has been ruined by the last few years, and as you quite rightly say, unnecessary lockdowns. And let's also remember the £11.8 billion have gone missing on COVID fraud. How handy would that be when we're balancing the books, by the way? We need to drive the economy forward. That's the Tory way, and that's the only way to get things going again.
Rebecca Reed, it's interesting that the Tories are taking an almost lefty approach to tax. So you probably love it.
I love it in theory when it works. So in a country like Sweden, where it is incredibly high tax, and I would feel a bit sick when I saw my payslip if I lived there. But, you know, if you have a baby, between you and your partner, you can take 2 years off fully funded to raise it. What I sense we're going to end up with is the same kind of sick feeling from our payslips, but not the ability to take 2 years off to raise a child. Because it's very British, isn't it? It's like we've done about 80% of the good thing, but we didn't finish it, and now it's actually a bad thing. But in theory, I'm a fan of Rishi. I think that his handling of the pandemic was very useful. As a self-employed person, I found I was very reliant on some of the measures that he put in.
You loved the handouts.
I did. I loved the handouts. If I hadn't had the handouts, I think I would have been, I mean, I would have survived, but it would have been a very, very tight period of time. And I think I knew when I took the handout that there would be some consequences to having had the handout. But I also can understand that if you didn't get a handout, you probably are thinking, sorry, why am I paying for that now?
Calvin,
I fell through the gaps. I didn't get any handout whatsoever. Luckily, I was able to carry on working.
Because you hadn't been self-employed long enough, is that? Yeah. And I think
I wasn't alone.
But a lot of self-employed people who live off dividends didn't get any support.
Yeah,
That's
to be fair,
problem.
the reason that I did well out of it is that I have a relatively honest accountant who's never tried to do anything clever to save me any money on tax. So I did benefit from that as well. If you were doing clever things with your tax, then that was not a good time to be self-employed.
But Calvin, it's all very convenient, isn't it, the timing of this latest crisis? Because all of a sudden it means that we don't have to blame this economic catastrophe on the fact that we self-harmed so significantly for the past 2 years because we shut down our economy, whereas you, me, Dawn, we've all been having conversations like this for the past 2 years, saying the economic consequences are going to be catastrophic.
It's almost funny, because we've been saying it for so long, you cannot spend your way out of a pandemic, and that's what we saw. We saw the government borrow over £300 billion, money that we will never pay back, our grandchildren will never pay back. And now this war's come up, we're saying, oh yeah, fuel prices are increasing and everything's increasing because of Russia. It's all Russia's fault. Well, actually, some of it might be, but the majority of the problems we are seeing right now are self-inflicted. They're from our own government.
I totally agree, and it does seem like I filled up my car the other day. I've only just had a car, I only just realised how much petrol costs. And people in the petrol station
This
were
is
like,
not the right time to buy a car.
I know. People in the petrol station were like, oh God, yeah, that Ukraine thing, it's really ruined. And I was like, where did that come from? That's not what happened.
I'm sorry, inflation, the cost of living crisis, it was all on the way, and it is a convenient case of timing, at least from a PR point of view.
But who started this rumour that it's all because of Ukraine? Like, where is this coming from?
Well, it's an easy narrative, isn't it?
It's
an easy narrative because a lot of it has come from Western governments who are essentially saying to their citizens, look, it's worth taking this hit. It's worth paying a bit more on fuel at the moment because we're doing it to defeat evil Putin. Whereas the fact is, we were heading headlong into a crisis long before this war. I do think it's made it worse. I agree with you on that, Calvin. I think it's exacerbated the situation.
Only, 5% of our power comes from Russia?
In this
but it's
country,
about the
not in
global
Europe.
market.
Yeah, and we're still paying billions of pounds to Putin for energy supplies at the moment, and that's going to carry on for years. We can't just switch it off just like that because we can't rely on our own energy supplies at the moment.
Exactly.
And 25% of my electricity bill is going to green levies.
It comes back to what we've been saying week in, week out. Let's have our own energy in this country, whether that's fracking for shale or whether that's setting up nuclear power.
Nuclear would
do
be
it at home.
Nuclear is clean. Nuclear can be done safely. It just needs better PR.
So, Calvin, do you think tomorrow we're going to see almost the final stage of someone like you who describes themselves as a true conservative being repelled by the tax policies of this current government?
Yep, and not just the voters. We could see a split in the parliamentary party as well, because the vast majority of Tories, although they're not socially conservative like me, they are economically conservative. So to be raising taxes is going to upset a lot of them.
Well, it's the one thing you're allowed to, like, as a Tory person, it's the thing you're allowed to feel good about, isn't it? Like, at least we have low taxes.
But I mean, it's only, a month or two ago that we were sat on these sofas talking about the Tory rebellion. So these people are still there. Let's not forget that. Waiting.
Would you be less likely to vote for them if this all goes through and, as a result of tax
I couldn't vote for a party that's increasing taxation.
That's really interesting.
The problem is, what alternative have you got? Where is the opposition?
Reform, Reclaim, SDP, all these smaller parties
This
need
is
to
like
come
when I
together,
vote for the Women's Equality
unite
Party,
and
though.
stand up.
It feels nice in the moment, but you know that it's not going to get anywhere.
It's a waste of time because of our electoral system.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we will see tomorrow dawn, but I don't think the noises are good. I think we might get a bit of a cut to fuel duty. Maybe they'll increase the threshold for national insurance, which impacts the most low paid in society, but it doesn't help the vast bulk of us.
It's not. It's not really helping anyone at all, is it? I mean, you know, the people that voted for this Conservative government have not got in any way, shape or form what they voted for. We didn't vote for a Green Party. We didn't vote to be taxed through the roof. I mean, obviously, the pandemic has happened, but the way that was handled, the amount of money wasted, our money wasted, the unnecessary, nonsensical rules that were set for us, that is what we're paying for now.
Well, the thing is, you can keep blaming crises, can't you? And you could say that with the COVID pandemic, this was a once-in-a-generation crisis. But the thing is, there's another crisis now, and there will be another crisis in 6 months' time. And I think we have to start judging governments by how they respond in a crisis, and they shouldn't back away from their principles. Final word to you, Rebecca.
I'm sympathetic to people who voted for them because, as you list it, Dawn, I'm thinking, yeah, I love those green policies, and actually all that money they gave us was really nice. And I didn't vote for them, and I'm not the person who would vote for them, so I can see why people are annoyed.
Well, hence the problem. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, and Dawn Neeson, my superstar panel, are here all night. But also still to come, why are Ramonas so ready to adorn Ukrainian flags and support its sovereignty after spending 6 years blasting Brexiteers as xenophobes for showing pride in our country? Well, Brendan O'Neill is going to explore the shallowness and hypocrisy of Liberals who've been supporting Ukraine while attacking Brexit. That's at 9:30, will be unmissable. Next is freed British Iranian prisoner Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe wrong for criticising the British government on her return. British political YouTuber and son of an Iranian political refugee, Maya Tusi, who personally suffered at the hands of Iran's cruel regime, and human rights lawyer David Haig, who's freed several Brits jailed abroad, will do battle in the clash. That's straight after the break. I want to know what you think, though. Dan at gbnews.uk. On the email, tweet me at GBNews. We've got a poll running there too. The results will be very interesting and we'll reveal them after this break.
Hello again. Following Tuesday's warm sunshine, skies remain clear overnight, and that will lead to temperatures dipping away, a chilly night for many, before sunshine returns once again on Wednesday. We're in a very static weather pattern at the moment. High pressure is sitting strongly to the east and keeping low pressure away to the west. In between, a warm southerly airflow is leading to, well, cloud-free skies for many, and it stays that way overnight. But of course, at this time of year, the ground quite quickly loses its heat. We're still looking at a 12-hour nighttime period, and as a result, temperatures dipping close to freezing in a few spots. So chilly starts to Wednesday. 1 or 2 fog patches as well, most likely Vale of York, for example, and other parts of northeast and eastern England. But for many, it's a sunny start, and it stays that way through the day. Temperatures rising quickly through the morning, more warmth to come, a bit more of a breeze at times for the far southwest, a bit of patchy cloud here as well, cloud bubbling up elsewhere. But for the vast majority, it's just bright blue skies It's dry and it's warm. 18 or 19 Celsius, the top temperature. The far north of Scotland, northwest England, North Wales, southeast England as well. So quite a few places seeing that warmth. And then heading into the evening, well, we do it all again under clear skies. Temperatures drop away and a few fog patches will form, but really for most will stay fog-free and frost-free. Temperatures in towns and cities dipping to 4 to 7 Celsius, but really it's in sheltered spots where they'll be closer to freezing. Now, one change on Thursday is that we'll pull in a bit more cloud from the Atlantic across the north and northwest of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. That cloud could contain a few spots of rain, but for the vast majority it's another sunny, dry and warm day. Perhaps not quite as warm as Tuesday and Wednesday, but feeling pleasant in the sunshine nevertheless. Friday's looking remarkably similar, and Saturday is too.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Brendan O'Neill and Darren Grimes coming up, but first, The Clash. And breaking tonight, Number 10 has been forced to intervene in the toxic row over whether Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe has been ungrateful to the British government since her release from Iran. Now, Nazanin took aim at ministers in her first public comment since arriving home last week, declaring that it should have happened when she was initially arrested 6 years ago.
I have seen 5 foreign secretaries changed over the course of 6 years. That is unprecedented given the politics of the UK. I love you, Richard. Respect whatever you believe. But I was told many, many times that, oh, we're going to get you home. That never happened. So there was a time that I felt like, do you know what? I'm not even going to trust you because I've been told many, many times that I'm going to be taken home. But that never happened. I mean, how many foreign secretaries does it take for someone to come home? 5. It should have been one of them eventually.
Now, somewhat predictably, major row over those comments has resulted in a polluted battle on that cesspit that is Twitter. Trolls today began sharing a send her back hashtag and branded her ungrateful. That's what prompted Downing Street to defend the British Iranian mum. The PM's spokesman insisted Nazanin has been through an unimaginable ordeal and UK citizens were able to rightly voice their opinions on any topic they wish, to stark contrast to how things work in Iran. Former Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt, who was in office in 2018 and 2019 when Nazanin was languishing in Iranian jail, agreed that her release had taken too long. He tweeted, "Those criticising Nazanin have got it so wrong. She doesn't owe us gratitude. We owe her an explanation." So was Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe wrong for criticising the British government? What do you think? Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet me at gbnews, vote in our Twitter poll right now. But doing battle over this tonight, a British political YouTuber, son of an Iranian political refugee, Maya Tusi, and David Haig, a human rights lawyer and founder of Detained International, an NGO that has helped a number of Brits get out of prison abroad. And both of these folk have real skin in the game when it comes to this issue. So, Maya, let me start with you. You've shared a bit of your personal story in terms of Iran today to justify your position. Do you want to explain?
Yes, I mean, firstly, the whole main question about being grateful. Firstly, all of us have to be grateful, regardless of, in terms of the country that we're in, whether you're a white English Brit or someone who was born somewhere else or not. That's my main issue, firstly, because I understand fully, before we start this debate, that Nazanin went through a tough personal trauma, something that my family and I went through. Obviously, I was born in Iran, and I've been detained for believing in liberty. They made my mum's life miserable until this country gave her a fresh chance, and that's why I am massively grateful for Her Majesty's United Kingdom every single day. The main point of this issue is that it's not really, I'm not saying, no one is saying that Nazanin should have gone on her knees and said, oh, I love Liz Truss or Boris Johnson. It's not even about that. It's simply about timing of it. Being grateful as opposed to shifting the blame. Not really. It's a balance of blame, basically. We didn't really focus on blaming on Iran in that press conference. It's about timing. That was the moment that we could have actually showed a united front as citizens and the government against the Iranian regime, who was sitting there in Tehran laughing at us, watching that press conference, all of us, half the country attacking Nazanin, half the country attacking
And Maya, I agree with that, actually. It was a shame she didn't go harder against the Iranian regime, which, of course, were the ones that locked her up. But you say, Maya, correct me if I'm wrong, but you think she has to take some personal responsibility because she went to Iran in the first place?
Well, I mean, I'm speaking from my personal experience, of course, because of what I went through in my family. And I know that if I go back, I'll be instantly in prison. So I'm smart enough not to go back. In terms of what to expect from a UK government, or any government, when you go and get stuck and get into trouble, considering the bad guys are the Iranian regime here, not the British government. And we can sit here for 6.5 hours discussing the concept of the money, whether some of us would disagree that we should have given the money or not, legally speaking, and we could do that all day long. The point of it is that it's a bad precedent. You can't create, and even her husband, Richard Radcliffe, agrees with my point that, of course, on a personal level, he would do anything to bring his wife back, and also understands that you can't just use carrots. Sometimes you have to use carrot and sticks, and you can't keep doing this because the main reason is that you're going to put more people's lives at risk. Millions of British Iranians, but also American Iranians and millions of Iranians across the world, you're going to put all their lives at risk so that if they ever visit Iran, that they're going to get into trouble because Iran now knows that they could literally take the next person as hostage and ask for more money.
David Haig, you disagree?
Absolutely. I think the first thing that we should do is look at the facts. So in 2015, the UK government, the Foreign Office, changed the travel advisory from don't go to Iran to effectively it's fine to travel there. So Nazanin, as a young mother, effectively went with her child to her parents because the travel advisory at the time was not do not go to Iran. So she followed the government advice. So you have a British citizen following the government advice. She got there. She was arbitrarily detained and arrested. The government then changed their advice back to effectively do not travel to Iran for unless essential travel. So she followed the advice all the way along. And then she was detained for 6 years. And I think if all your viewers imagine this, detained for 6 years for something she didn't do and for a debt that the government owed Iran and didn't pay. And then eventually when that's paid, she's let go. And in between all of that, you've got the now Prime Minister, then Foreign Secretary, certainly not helping her situation by doing what Boris does best and bumbling and making inappropriate comments. So if you're her and you've just got out of 6 years of hell, you're thrust into media cameras, I think you are going to be a little bit angry. And I think it's perfectly fine for her to say what she did. And I think she's...
I mean, Maya, when you hear it like that, perhaps she's got a right to be annoyed and to criticise the British government.
It's I understand the emotional irrationality that we all have at times, and that's all given. We're all humans. I fully get it. The problem I have, firstly, quick point, the travel advice. These are the same people who would want the government to tell them whether they should wear a mask or not. British Iranians, we know from day one, since 1979, whether the Foreign Office tell us not to go or go, that it's a risk. And
you wouldn't go, Maya?
No, even if the Foreign Office says you're allowed to go. I mean, personally, I will be instantly present, but, any other kind of friend that I know that's Iranian, they know that whether the Foreign Office says go or don't go, we're not going to go. That's a bad idea. That's one thing. But I do understand David's point about in the moments when you're angry, and I get it. The problem is, if you're angry, then why is it that there's a tiny bit of focus on the fact that when you have the Labour MP been campaigning on her behalf as a local MP and the others. Liz Truss, I'm not even a big fan these days of Liz Truss, but as Foreign Secretary, whether she was right or wrong to give them money, she did something. But why is it that she's hanging out with Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, but nothing? It's clearly and it's not even her fault. It's the Labour Party's fault. They're using her, taking political advantage, but using her. And that's the biggest problem. And it's Keir Starmer who's not fit for governing, because he's told us we should have paid that money years ago, instantly.
I mean, David, wasn't it wrong for Nazanin to not give at least some credit to Liz Truss? Because at the end of the day, the Foreign Secretary delivered something that the previous 4 Foreign Secretaries were unable to deliver. And whether you say this was because of diplomats or not, she made it one of her priorities from the moment that she got that job.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I think the person that knows better than all of us, obviously, is Nazanin. She knows what was done by the Foreign Secretary, and when you look at what Jeremy Hunt's comments were as well, a former Foreign Secretary, he's actually agreeing with Nazanin effectively.
Yeah, but he didn't deliver it. He didn't deliver it, and Liz Truss did.
Certainly on the face of it, when I saw the fact that this had happened, I said, well done, Liz Truss. But then again, I don't know the exact facts, and perhaps Nazanin does more than I do. I mean, certainly under her watch, then Liz Truss has got Nazanin and the other chap out. So I think that's a positive thing. But I understand, this lady was detained for 6 years. When she left, her child was a baby, and now is a 6-year-old, and she was kept in horrific conditions in solitary confinement. I understand why she's not going to sit there and trail off like an Oscar speech of who she should thank and who she shouldn't. She's going to be angry. She's going to be upset, and I think she's justified in
Maya, she can't get those 6 years back.
That's the thing. I mean,
exactly. Neither can the family.
One issue is that, again, we've already covered the personal trauma and, in the moments and anger. I mean, what kind of competition, you could justify all that, obviously. David's tiny point that he made about only she would know about the details of the story and all that stuff and the relations between the Foreign Secretary and the Iranian government. Well, in terms of knowing the details, there's another person who also knows as much as her, and it was her husband, Richard. And Richard Ratcliffe, even he was actually acknowledging to say that, Liz Truss did something. And the whole point of it, and even she said, I disagree with you, Richard, with all due respect, I love you. And the problem is that, again, that was the one moment that we could have united. And as a country, citizens and the government, the one press conference is all about PR. Whether you like it or not, it is all a game. It's a PR game. And whether you're a human or an ordinary person or a politician, that was our time to show united front against the Iranian regime and actually use that platform to slam the Iranians. Yeah. And the next day,
but instead, we slammed ourselves. We slammed ourselves. I think it's a fair point. Well, look, fascinating debate. Thank you so much for having it. That was the British political YouTuber and son of an Iranian political refugee, Maya Tusi, and David Haig, a human rights lawyer and founder of Detained International. Thank you both. So which side are you on? Well, Woolers on Twitter says, I think the point was that she seemed angrier with the government who freed her than with the government who jailed her for 6 years. Fair point. I picked that up too, to be honest. Kev on Twitter says, the government came across at all times as if there was no urgency to her dilemma. 6 years in Iran must have felt like decades. Very fair. Julie, this is via the email. She says Nazanin needs to take responsibility for going to Iran in the first place. It's not our government's fault. It's a risky thing to do, which is the point of my Tusi. And your verdict is now in. 73% of you agree that Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe was wrong for criticising the government yesterday. 27% of you say it was the right thing to do. Fascinating result, that. Thank you so much for all of your feedback. Now, coming up, as Wills and Kate are dragged into the controversy on their Caribbean tour over whether the UK should repay Jamaica and apologise for its role in slavery, I'm going to be asking GB News star Darren Grimes where this retrospective madness ends. That's in The Outsider very soon. But next, Brendan O'Neill explores the shallowness and the hypocrisy of Liberals who've been supporting Ukraine while attacking Brexit. He's straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Now, on last night's show, I dismantled the tsunami of rank Ramona hypocrisy that followed these comments by Boris Johnson at the weekend.
I know that it's the instinct of the people of this country, like the people of Ukraine, to choose freedom every time. When the British people voted for Brexit in such large numbers, I don't believe it was because they were remotely hostile to foreigners. It's because they wanted to be free.
Now, Ramonas everywhere howled an outrage at the comparison. The only problem is the same Ramonas have seized every opportunity to link Brexit and Ukraine since Putin's tanks first rolled in. Well, Brendan O'Neill says Boris was right, and those fuming against him are angry because they saw that he threatened to expose their shallow, contingent commitment to the ideal of national sovereignty. As he put it in a brilliant column, actually, for The Spectator, they wear Ukrainian-coloured ribbons, hang the Ukrainian flag in their living room windows, cheer brave President Zelensky for defending Ukraine's national identity and sovereign rights. And yet some of these people spent much of the past 6 years denouncing flag-waving Brits as xenophobes. And Brendan joins me now. The hypocrisy of Ramonas never ends, does it, Brendan?
It never ends, and the hissy fits never end either. You know, another Ramona hissy fit. It's kind of an endless process at this point. And I think they're completely wrong about Boris's comments. I mean, the first thing to say is that he didn't actually compare voting for Brexit to fighting in Ukraine. He didn't make that comparison. All he was saying is that people around the world long for freedom, long for independence, and people in Britain, like people in Ukraine, want to be free. And then he gave our vote for Brexit as an example of our desire for freedom. I think he was completely right. And in fact, what there is in common between Brexit and the fight in Ukraine is that both of them, in very different ways, are fights for national sovereignty. We were lucky enough to be able to peacefully vote with no stress and no violence at all. We peacefully voted for national sovereignty when we voted to leave the EU. The Ukrainian people, tragically, have to fight very hard indeed for their national sovereignty. But there is a connection between people around the world who want their nations to be free.
Indeed, it is about freedom, isn't it? That is fundamentally the point that Boris was making.
Yeah, about freedom. And I think the reason that the Ramona elites kicked up such a fuss is because they know he has a point. They know that somewhere deep in their corroded souls, they know he has a point when he says that the vote for Brexit was a vote for freedom. And the struggle in Ukraine is a struggle for freedom. And the issue with these people is they are currently supporting the Ukrainian people, as we all should, in my view. They're supporting the Ukrainian people as they wave their flags and fight to defend their national honor and talk about their national identity and struggle for national sovereignty. They're supporting all of that. But they opposed all of those things when people in Britain argued for them over the past 6 years. They said you were a xenophobe if you waved the British flag. You were an idiot if you talked about something like national identity. Only xenophobes really obsess over things like sovereignty. These are the kinds of arguments they were making. So their commitment to sovereignty independence is a very new phenomenon, and it's full of hypocrisy too.
And Brendan, remember, these were the very people, I exposed them on the show last night, the very people who, the moment the war began, wanted to invoke Brexit as some sort of failure, as some sort of contribution to Putin's invasion. I'm talking the Michael Heseltines, the Alistair Campbells, the James O'Brien. So it's one rule for them, another rule for Boris, apparently.
Oh, completely. I mean, you couldn't make it up. They are raging against Boris for not even doing what they said he did. He didn't actually make that comparison. While these people have been talking about Brexit and Ukraine in the same breath endlessly for the past 3 weeks. And they've been arguing for years that Brexit was something done by Putin. Evil Russia posted all these memes and misinformation on the British internet and made us all vote for Brexit. Or even worse, they compare Brexit to the 1930s and the rise of Nazism. You know, who can forget David Lammy saying that some of the Tories in the European Research Group are like Nazis, if not worse. You know, these people have been making the most insane, ridiculous comparisons between Brexit and Nazism or Brexit and Putin's Russia for a long time. So they need to lay off Boris, because all he did was make a sensible point about people's yearning for freedom. It is actually they who have been making twisted comparisons between Brexit and other world events.
No, it has. It has been them, and it's not what Boris did. But Brendan, I'm sorry, you can hardly say that the EU has had a particularly good war. And in fact, it has been our independence. It has been Brexit that has allowed Boris to take this leading role on the world stage. And remember, he's the one that stopped the appeasement by Germany and by France in the early days of this conflict.
That's right. I actually think Britain should be proud of the role it's played in supporting the Ukrainians. I think we could probably do a little bit more, in fact. I think lots of people in this country are very concerned about what's happening in Ukraine. They want the Ukrainians to win. They want them to have freedom and they want them to have peace. And Britain has helped the Ukrainians in various different ways. And we've had the flexibility to do that because we're no longer tied to the technocratic, slothful European Union, which is just bad at doing anything at all. So we should really cherish this opportunity, not the opportunity of the war in Ukraine, but the opportunity of leaving the European Union. We should really cherish that as a way to assist other nations who, like us, want to be free. And I think the more we can do to help the people of Ukraine, the better.
And thank God we're not weighed down by the EU. And actually, Liz Truss concerned that France and Germany already looking for an early way out, already looking to give in to lots of Putin's demands. And whether that's right or wrong is a separate discussion. But the issue is, Brendan, why are they doing it? And they're doing it for pure economic reasons, because they have become far too dependent on Russian energy.
That's absolutely right. And I'm really worried, in fact, by the number of people, people in the political class in Europe and journalists in the UK, the number of people who are now saying, well, Ukraine has to settle with Russia. It should probably accept some compromises. It should probably give in to some of Russia's demands, including the annexation of large parts of Ukrainian territory and the demand that Ukraine should be neutral and disarm and really give in to Moscow. That's essentially what Russia is saying. I think that's completely wrong. All of us want this war to end, but we surely also want Ukraine to remain a free, sovereign nation that determines its own destiny. And I think, as you say, lots of political leaders in Europe are compromised by their reliance on Russian energy and by the fact that they just cannot survive if Russia were to turn off the taps. And so they are driven by a pretty ulterior motive, an ugly ulterior motive, where they want to defend their own interests rather than the interests of the Ukrainian people. And we've got to get our priorities right. The important thing here is freedom for Ukraine, and that's what's got to override everything else.
Brendan O'Neill, thank you so much. We'll speak again next week. But coming up, is President Zelensky's decision to ban certain opposition parties a mistake that could see Ukraine move away from democracy? We'll debate that and give you a first look at how tomorrow's newspapers are covering the crisis in the media buzz from 10. But next, as protesters during Kate and Will's Caribbean tour demand the UK repay Jamaica and apologise for its role in slavery, GBNews star Darren Grimes asks where this retrospective madness ends. He's the outsider, straight after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Darren Grimes is tonight's outsider. And breaking tonight, protesters demanding reparations and an apology from the royal family over the British Empire's historical links to slavery have gathered outside the British High Commission in Jamaica as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge land in the country for the second leg of their Caribbean tour. In the past, the royal couple would have been able to make a lovely visit to a jewel of the Commonwealth without scandal arising, but this is 2022 after all, so of course, Kate and Wills find themselves caught in another storm over Britain's colonial past, with members of the Jamaican elite protesting the trip in an open letter, accusing the royal family of having, quote, perpetuated the greatest human rights tragedy in the history of humankind. Now, local reports suggest Jamaica, which has a strong Republican movement, has already started the process to remove the Queen as head of state and become independent, following in the footsteps of Barbados. And was all this difficulty intensified by the antics of a certain, there she is, Meghan Markle, when she made unsubstantiated and anonymous allegations of racism within the royal family during her outlandish pack of lies interview with Oprah, prompting the infamous response from Buckingham Palace that recollections may vary. Well, Jamaican attorney and reparations advocate Bert Samuels told Newsweek William should come here with an apology, not only for slavery, but for the treatment of a black woman who had to run out of the palace with her husband. That's a strong issue, and that's a fresh wound. Look, let me tell you, Bert Samuels, Meghan wasn't forced out of the palace. She ran out in a hurry because she wanted to make the big moolah, the big bucks in Hollywood and become even more famous. She just used the British royal family. Darren Grimes, this is just madness, is it not? But look at the trouble that Meghan has caused for the royal family.
Absolutely right. I mean, let's not forget that Meghan, she left Queen and country and traded it in for whackery and wokery.
Well,
to
me gain, that's what I like to call it, because that's what this was all about, Darren. She didn't give a damn about the British royal family.
Very true, very true. But Dan, what I would say to the charge that's laid at the door of today's royals about reparations and all these other things, colonialism. In the year, I want to take you back. I'm going to take you back quite some time, right? To the year 793, right? There was an attack that shook the continent of Europe to its core. A horde of Vikings came over from Norway and attacked the northeast of England, right? Monks were murdered at Lindisfarne, and what took place was a sort of regular plunder until a full invasion took place in 866. Now, Dan, I think I'm going to get together and set myself up a group and actually demand reparations from Norway and say that my northeast ancestors deserve to be respected and have their rights protected because of the pasts and basically in retribution for what Norway did in the past. But on a totally serious note, Dan, right? This isn't anything new. There have been activist groups in Jamaica for quite some time now. Now they use Meghan Markle as an excuse. Utter tosh. Saying that Her Majesty the Queen is guilty of human rights abuses and that British taxpayers owe reparations. There's a saying, Dan, that we use up here in the Northeast, and my mother always used to say it in the context of pushing me to do things. She'd say, shy bairns get nowt. And this basically means if you don't ask, you don't get. Now, this is what I see happening here, right? This is a few chancers saying, and why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you chance it and ask the British taxpayer to part with their cash and justify it by raising the horrific atrocities?
They're threatening us, though, aren't they, Darren, because of the Republican movement. They're essentially saying, you give us reparations or we're out.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but I fundamentally, I believe in the right of self-determination. I believe in the right of nation states and democratic rights and all these other things, really important principles. So if they want to do that, absolutely fine.
So you would say goodbye Jamaica rather than paying the reparations?
I would, because let's not forget how much taxpayer cash was spent in seeking to make amends in the 1800s by using the might of the Royal Navy to quash the slave trade and to vast expense to the taxpayer, and rightly so, because of the years and years of abuse of that trade and the practice of the trade in general. But there is absolutely no apology necessary, Dan, by the modern monarchs, right? There is no reason for Jamaica to feel that it needs to keep Her Majesty the Queen as their head of state should they not wish to do so, right? Our relationship with Jamaica now is based on international trade. It's based on the Commonwealth, which, let's not forget, members are free to leave, all right? This is no club of empire. This is a democratic club, which the members are free to come and go. One that's based on mutually beneficial aid and cooperation. I think pushing democracy and other shared aims, Dan, is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful thing. And let's not forget, right, fundamentally, were there to be payments of reparations made by British taxpayers, as you well know, this country is one of the most diverse nations on earth, right? One of the most multicultural nations on earth. We would find ourselves in the utterly bizarre scenario in which descendants of slaves in this country, British citizens, would be handing over their hard-earned cash in reparations to citizens in other democracies that are descended from slave owners. It would be a complete and utter unjustifiable farce. Right?
It would.
I think
it would. It's a total fallacy, Darren. It is a total fallacy, and it shouldn't happen. But the reason I'm so angry is that they're using this propaganda from Meghan Markle to add to their cause and try and paint a picture of our 95-year-old monarch as some sort of racist. And anyone who knows anything about the Queen knows that couldn't be further from the truth. And so I say shame on Meghan Markle, and shame on the propagandists in Jamaica who are using her lies to advance their political cause.
Absolutely. If you consider the really important things that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are doing out in Jamaica, celebrating the legacy of Bob Marley, meeting the Jamaican Defence Force and staff at a hospital, there'll be many there that are absolutely delighted, Dan, to see members of the British royal family doing such things. And I say, in any democracy as vibrant as Jamaica's, people of Jamaica are free to decide if they want to become a republic. But all I can say, Dan, is look at President Biden, right? That should be a warning to anyone that wants to do such a thing.
Well, of course. But Darren, I want the people of Jamaica to make that decision based on facts.
Yes.
And the Queen loves the people of Jamaica. And the Queen is not a racist woman. And this implication, which Meghan made, that the Queen is somehow overseeing a racist royal family, has done damage. That's all I'm saying. It was always going to do damage. They knew what they were doing in that Oprah Winfrey interview. They were damaging the monarchy. They were damaging the royal family. And that's why it's so disgraceful. Because all they wanted, Darren, was big bucks. That's all they wanted, and lots of attention. But in consequence for their actions, they've damaged the royal family. Final word to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do believe they have, and I do believe that that's why it was absolutely right that this meddling pair have absolutely nothing to do with that most cherished institution, a really important institution that's seeking to bolster things like international trade.
Indeed, and the Jamaicans will see through it. The Jamaicans will see through it because they'll know, like me, and they'll know, like you, that Meghan's just a big fat liar. Darren Grimes, thank you so much. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton, and breaking tonight, Russian forces have only 3 days' worth of fuel, food and ammunition left to continue fighting the war after a breakdown in supply chains. That's according to Ukrainian military commanders. Now, the claims of major shortages were described as plausible by Western officials, although they said they were unable to corroborate the analysis for certain. But as the promise of potential peace grows, is Liz Truss right to be concerned that France and Germany will give Russia an easy off-ramp and appease Putin as they did with the Minsk agreement in 2014? Plus, is Zelensky's decision to ban certain opposition parties and private TV stations a mistake that could see Ukraine move away from democracy? My superstar panel is going to be returning to debate that shortly tonight. The Daily Star editor, former editor and current columnist Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator Calvin Robertson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reed will also give you a first look at how tomorrow's papers are covering the news from Ukraine and beyond. That's throughout the next hour. Does the MSM have itself to blame for sparking cynicism of reporting on the war in Ukraine? Well, Baroness Claire Fox has witnessed firsthand the damage COVID hysteria has done to the public trust, and she weighs in on how we can maintain free and rational debate when it comes to this crisis. That's an uncancelled and important discussion, one we need to have at 10:40. On a related note, why did the mainstream media derelict their duty to question all aspects of the government's lockdown policy during the COVID crisis? Well, former ITV and Sky News executive Mark Sharman is next to give evidence in my lockdown inquiry as he provides a unique insight into the media's failures at 10:20. Is Gordon Ramsay's claim that lockdown purged the hospitality industry of crap restaurants an insult to ruined owners and the 700,000 people who lost their livelihoods? Plus, after a 14-year-old girl died while riding an e-scooter. Should these killing machines just be banned from our roads before there are any more tragedies? And could this entry from US pop idol Michael Bolton win America's first ever Eurovision Song Contest? He's lost his hair, but he's still got it. I'll explain all about this, by the way. America is now doing the Eurovision Song Contest. That's coming up in the Media Buzz. It's an odd one. And I'll be crowning a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass before the end of the show too, so don't go anywhere. But first, the news headlines at 10 with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Dan. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The Sir David Amess murder trial has heard the accused threatened to kill 4 more people after he attacked the MP. The court was shown CCTV of the suspect, Ali Harbi Ali, travelling to Sir David's constituency in Essex in October last year. A 999 call made by Yvonne Eves, who had an appointment to see the MP, was later played to the jury.
Please, quick now. The man is wielding a knife and he's threatened me. He's killed David Amess at Belfast Methodist Church. But we need an ambulance as well. He wants to get shot, apparently. He wants to be a hero. He wants the police to come and shoot him.
Who? What, the person with the knife?
Yes. Yes. You need an armed response unit here.
We have, yeah.
He's coming. You can get in round the back of the church, apparently.
Yvonne Eves there speaking to emergency services. Ukraine's president says there is nothing left of the city of Mariupol after weeks of Russian bombardment. 300,000 people trapped in the occupied city of Kherson are said to be running out of food and medical supplies. Kiev has appealed to Moscow to allow the evacuation of at least 100,000 who want to leave Mariupol. Russian forces are being accused of blocking humanitarian corridors and preventing supplies from reaching the city. The United States has strongly condemned what it's called Russia's orchestration of a sham trial against Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. It comes after a court found him guilty of large-scale fraud and sentenced him to a further 9 years in a maximum security prison. Navalny, one of President Putin's most prominent critics, is already serving a 2.5-year sentence for parole violations. State Department spokesperson Ned Price says the decision was the latest attempt to silence Navalny and other opposition figures who've been critical of Russian authorities.
This disturbing decision, the one announced today, is another example of the Russian government's widening crackdown on dissent and freedom of expression, which is intended to hide the Kremlin's brutal war and unprovoked war against Ukraine.
The RMT union has accused P&O Ferries of blackmail after the company announced it's offering sacked staff more than £36 million in compensation. The payouts will be linked to their period of service, with 40 of the 800 employees set to receive more than £100,000 each. But the RMT says if staff don't sign up, giving away their right to take the case to an employment tribunal, they'll receive a fraction of the amount. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have been filmed diving off the coast of Belize as they continued their royal tour of the Caribbean, marking the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. William and Kate donned scuba gear to check out the second largest barrier reef in the world. The trip came ahead of a visit to Jamaica, where there have been protests. Campaigners are calling for the British monarchy to pay reparations for slavery and apologise for human rights abuses. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. Lots of newspapers in early tonight, so let's get straight to them. Sling your hook, says the Metro. The paper writes that members of the exiled Ukrainian youth sailing team have taken the fight to Russian oligarchs by mounting a David and Goliath raid on Roman Abramovich's £430 million super yacht in a Turkish port. And the Duchess of Cambridge dives into her next Caribbean experience in the waters of Belize on her tour with Prince William. The Sun delivers a world-exclusive look at Vladimir Putin's sickening super yacht featuring gold-plated loo roll holders and 6 decks of luxury. Authorities are under pressure to sell the vessel for the benefit of Ukrainian war victims. An ex-crew member told the paper Putin needs his head flushing down that golden throne, and maybe he'll never be back on that yacht. The Eye reports, and I was so concerned about this earlier today actually, worse fears that Ukraine faces years of landmine tragedies from unexploded munitions, as Mariupol's deputy mayor claims the city is being destroyed like Hiroshima. But the Daily Telegraph reports some much needed good news in Ukraine's war effort. In several places, Ukrainian forces have pushed back Russian troops, with some now described as ill-prepared and suffering from frostbite. But that's raised fears, and increasingly desperate Putin may use biological or chemical weapons. My superstar panel back with me now, former editor and columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reed. Now, breaking tonight, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he is prepared to discuss a commitment from Ukraine not to seek NATO membership in exchange for a ceasefire, the withdrawal of Russian troops, and a guarantee of Ukraine's security. In an interview with public TV, he also repeated his call for direct talks with Vladimir Putin, adding that Kiev will be ready to discuss the status of Crimea and the eastern Donbass region held by Russian-backed separatists. Of course, I want this horrific war to be over, but the increased scrutiny of Zelensky and the goings-on in Ukraine could have implications for the country's future once that hopefully imminent and peaceful day arrives. I started off yesterday's show actually by saying how disappointed I am by Zelensky's decision to ban 11 opposition parties and all private TV stations during the conflict. My fear being that Ukraine could just become another tin pot dictatorship if he continues to go down this path. The Western world is against Putin precisely because of his contempt for democracy and free speech, and this time we're committed to coming down hard. Even the prospect of Germany and France offering Mad Vlad an easy off-ramp given their role as mediators in the Minsk agreement that followed Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 has not surprisingly spooked Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, who along with the government is committed to ensuring the G7 nations remain united. And that should be a sign to Zelensky. It would be a tragedy for the country the West has united around to slide closer to Russian authoritarianism and become similarly isolated. And Calvin Robinson, look, this is one of the issues with Zelensky's decision. Of course, you can say it's wartime. We do quite extraordinary things in wartime. We might do anti-democratic things in wartime, but this is a fight for democracy. And I don't think Zelensky needs to feel threatened by a few opposition parties that might have Russian sympathies or private TV companies. And I just really feel disappointed that he went down this path.
Well, this is the warning that I issued 3 weeks ago, isn't it? In that Putin is bad, Russia is wrong, but that does not make Zelensky a hero. And it's the hero worship and the idolatry that I've been worried about all along, because we can support the Ukrainian citizens just as much as we support the Russian citizens. It's the politicians we have to be wary of. And Zelensky, you know, his government isn't the most democratic government in the West. It's probably, well, I think it was voted the second most corrupt democracy in the world. It's not a bastion of democracy. It never was.
I think in Europe,
only a fifth of countries are democracies, so there aren't that many.
Well, exactly. And I think there's a couple of things we've got to break down there, because firstly, he was elected democratically.
It was essentially a coup, though, wasn't it? He was essentially planted in by the West. He's America's puppet. We can't disregard that.
Well, I would dispute that. I think the Ukrainian people were so fed up of Russian sympathizers in charge of their country, and it was a popular uprising, which, of course, you could argue the West supported, and maybe that's backfired on them. But he was voted in by over 71% of the population. Dawn, you can't say Putin was voted in democratically.
He was voted in by 100% of the population because they didn't really have much choice. The thing is with Zelensky, he has been winning the PR war on this one, hasn't he? Big time.
But can I just say one thing, sorry, Dawn, before you go on, because I just wanted to pick up on this point. I don't think we should say any politician is a hero, but what I would say is it was absolutely heroic when America offered him that helicopter out of the country. He said, no, I will stay and I will fight and I will go down with my people, because that's not what we saw from the Afghan president. I just wanted to make that point. So I don't necessarily think any politician is a hero, but I think he has been heroic in many of his actions.
Well, ironically, one politician we do hold up as a hero in this country is Churchill. And Ukraine isn't the first democracy to behave in this way by banning people that are critical of the regime during a wartime. We did it during the World War II. We imprisoned a lot of people without trial in any way, shape or form. A lot of our Italians and our and Germans that were living here, many of them Jews or exiles, we unfairly imprisoned them to keep them quiet. So we have done this as well.
Totally.
We also
but
stopped...
two wrongs don't make a right, number one.
Absolutely, I'm not defending it.
And secondly, this is a battle, for me, about democracy, which is why anything that he does to turn away from democracy, I think, does the Ukrainian people a great disservice.
No, of course. And one of the particular parties that he has banned is literally run by Putin's best mate. So you can understand why he's doing what, but it is going to lose him sympathy in the West. And at the moment, that is the one card that he held over Russia and the fact that they are...
he's been overwhelmingly backed by the world. Rebecca Reed, you often make the point, don't you, that in wartime we're allowed to do crazy things.
I don't know if I say it often. It's not like a thing I say every day. It's certainly true. Dawn is absolutely right about World War II. For instance, we requisitioned people's country houses. We literally said, that's a nice house you've got there. We're going to make it a hospital. Go live somewhere else. People would be horrified if we did that now, but it was part of the rules. But what I wanted to ask you, because for me, as somebody who's been a big consumer of celebrity media for a long time, this reminds me of Chrissy Teigen or Jennifer Lawrence. It's that thing about the media, we build people up. Like, oh my God, Jennifer Lawrence is so relatable. She's so funny. She's so like us. Oh my God, she's so irritating. She's such a show-off. She's such an attention seeker. Do you not think it's the same thing we do to celebrities? We love them too much and then they can't sustain it. So then
I think that's a really interesting point, actually, and I think Zelensky's celebrity is one of the reasons why there is so much cynicism from a lot of people, because they think he's acting or he's playing a role. Now, I don't think that, and actually I think he has shepherded his people through what is a horrendous time incredibly bravely. But that's why I will call him out when he makes decisions that are anti-democratic, because I think too many people in the media now will not say one negative word against Zelensky, because it's almost like if you say one negative thing about Zelensky, you're backing Putin.
You're a Putin apologist.
But the point still maintains that his playbook could have been written by the same people who made Katie Price and Peter Andre famous. This has been about appearances and theory, and it's fantastic, it's beautiful work from whoever does his PR, but it does all feel
and he's using a lot of propaganda videos. And again, I was having this discussion with someone earlier in the week, and I would argue you don't need the propaganda videos, Zelensky. What the media on the ground is showing the world is horrifying enough without you trying to turn this into a movie trailer.
He likes it. I mean, I think Calvin made a good point that really our sympathy should predominantly be with the people of Ukraine, not the figurehead of Ukraine. And this, I don't know why I'm slagging off Zelensky. I think he's probably a perfectly nice man. But he is a former sort of reality
He's an
TV
actor
star.
at the end
He's
of
an
the
actor.
day.
He's like me, a big self-publicist. All of that stuff doesn't go away just because you're doing good stuff.
No, but most politicians are, which is why, by the way, I think we have to critique him, and that's why I'm prepared to do that. But I do think he has been heroic in a lot of ways, though. But I think there's a difference between being heroic and being a hero. Now, Gordon Ramsay doesn't need a kitchen to be a nightmare. Just sit him down in front of a reporter and he'll soon give a take as unappealing as his roast veal sweetbread. The celebrity chef and failed game show host has come under fire, I think quite rightly, for celebrating lockdown's cleansing of, quote, crap restaurants, which I'm sure the nearly 700,000 hospitality workers who were out of a job at one point in the pandemic will appreciate. Not. Speaking to the Radio Times to promote his new BBC contest, Future Food Stars, Gordon said, I think what has been evident for all of us is the crap's gone. S-holes in a prime position and taking advantage because they're in a great location and they've got the footfall. But now we've wiped the slate clean, which is good. Now, tell that to the local pizza parlour or Indian takeaway that were unable to sustain months of closure. I'm sorry to break it to you, Gordon, but not everyone had the resources to spend lockdown chilling in their Cornish summer house. And while we're talking about rubbish chains, I would say give me a Byron burger over a Gordon Ramsay burger any day. Although, of course, other burgers always available. And I might have one after the show. Dawn Neeson, don't tell me off.
Stop it.
Don't tell me off.
Down the road, man.
Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robertson, Rebecca Reid. Stand by, because coming up, after a 14-year-old girl died while riding an e-scooter, should these killing machines now just be banned from our roads before there are any more of these tragedies? The Superstar panel return to debate that at 10:30. But next, why did the mainstream media derelict their duty to question all aspects of the government's lockdown policy during the COVID crisis? Former ITV and Sky News executive Mark Sharman is next to give evidence in my lockdown inquiry as he provides a unique insight into the media's failures. That's right after the break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Top news executive Mark Sharman is next to give evidence in the lockdown inquiry. So why did the mainstream media in Britain and all over the world, in fact, fail so spectacularly when it came to questioning all aspects of lockdown during the COVID crisis? And how crucial were draconian Ofcom regulations here in the UK to the apparent conspiracy of silence that developed? Well, one man who knows is Mark Sharman. That's because he's one of Britain's top broadcasting executives, having served as Director of Broadcasting at Sky News for 5 years, before eventually becoming the Director of Director of News at ITV. And Mark Sharman joins me now. And Mark, it's such a pleasure to have you here as part of the lockdown inquiry. I know this is quite a big deal for you to come out from behind the camera, where you've been an executive in the industry for so long.
Yes.
But I know you want to do it because you have been so disturbed by the coverage of many of your former colleagues, the organisations that you used to work for over the course of the pandemic. So can you just start by explaining this chilling warning that Ofcom gave near the start of the pandemic and how you think that may have impacted the coverage?
Well, I definitely think it impacted. It's not so much an Ofcom regulation. It was advice or a warning, actually.
It's like a little bulletin, wasn't it? Sent to
it was a warning to basically say, do not question the official government line. Now, to be fair to them, they said you can have opposition voices on, but presenters must intervene if there's any danger of harmful or misinformation. And
so did that essentially turn presenters at the BBC, Sky News, into essentially representatives of the government?
Yes, I think it did. Not just on-air talent. I think that warning affected all broadcasters. Most of the major broadcasters followed it, and actually it was only the one or two little smaller ones who wouldn't have that backup power who got caught. I mean, Uckfield Community Radio was censored for putting something out. But actually, I think what it's led to, I think it's created an environment which will lead to the biggest assault on freedom of speech and democracy I've known in my lifetime. I've never seen a warning from Ofcom like that. I've never seen the broadcasters toe the line. And rather than question the government, they became cheerleaders for the government.
And why, Mark? Why? That is the question I always ask myself, because surely the job of the BBC, ITV News, Sky News, two of the places where you used to work, surely the first job as a journalist is to question the government and to question the official narrative. So why did they not do that when it came to lockdown and COVID?
It is the first job. I mean, we've all been trained to give both sides of a story and let the viewer decide. But clearly, all the way through the pandemic, only one side of the story was given. And the media, actually, broadcasters and newspapers, picked up the torch that had been created by these behavioural psychologists and created this fear. The broadcasters picked it up with relish, and they really were spreaders of panic and fear.
They bought into the propaganda.
They did. They bought absolutely into the propaganda, and I think it was very dangerous. But I think you have to probably look beyond Ofcom and beyond this country, because, as you said, this was a worldwide lockstep occurrence, and in parallel with media, you had big tech, new media, who were censoring everything.
Well, I want to come on to big tech, actually, because they took the lead from Ofcom to begin with, at least in the UK, and the impact was absolutely chilling, because it meant someone like me who, for example, started to question very early on the theory that the COVID-19 had leaked from the lab in Wuhan, we were immediately slapped with misinformation labels. The broadcasters that we worked for would get one of these strikes, and it meant that if you got 3 strikes, you would actually be removed from the platform, be it YouTube or Twitter. So for financial reasons, no broadcasters want to be removed from big tech. So it encouraged a climate, didn't it, of people being ultra cautious with what they published.
Yes, and it wasn't just the media, it applies to individuals. This censoring and banning and blacking and warnings go across the board, and there are certain triggers, as you know, certain words that will get you banned, and there appears to be a worldwide narrative.
And they were taking the lead, weren't they, from the CDC and Fauci?
I mean, there is a worldwide narrative, and the big tech and media worldwide have followed it, and anybody that spoke out against it was censored. Now, in big tech, it was by blocking and censoring. In our media, it tended to be by ignoring the other side of the story. I mean, I know from my personal experience that freelance journalists were pitching stories and ideas to newspapers. People within the newspapers and within television were going in with ideas to balance, and they were being shown the door. I mean, not sacked, but the ideas were not accepted.
And the same thing happened to scientists, didn't it?
Yes,
I mean, you look at some of our eminent epidemiologists. Take the example of Sunitra Gupta from Oxford University, an absolutely brilliant woman. She was blacklisted by all of the mainstream broadcasters.
Scientists, doctors, any journalists and individuals, anybody that questioned and spoke out. And some of these people are eminent, as you say. They were branded as false information, misinformation, conspiracy theorists. You know, it's so easy just to, if you disagree with you're a conspiracy theorist. You know, yeah, they were all.
So again, I would ask why. What was it inside the BBC and ITV and Sky News that made them go for this narrative? Was it ratings? Because of course, for a period, fear really sold, didn't it? These journalists had more power than they'd ever had in their lives because we were all locked in our homes and we were hanging off the every word of a COVID hysteric like Robert Peston at a press conference. Did they become addicted to the ratings? Did they become addicted to the power? Or was there something more sinister than that?
I think to begin with, I think probably we all believe that this pandemic was worse than it's turned out to be. And I think there was an honest feeling that they were doing right by the country to begin with. I think it's later, and particularly over vaccines, where the media have let the country down. You know, why would you not ask questions about the government doing a secret deal with Pfizer that took away any responsibility for anything going wrong from Pfizer? They've given them indemnity. Why would you do that? Why would the FDA and Pfizer hide their documents and their trials, or try to, for 75 years? You know, these are suspicious things, and the questions should have been asked. And of course, what we're now seeing is some of the documents have been released, and we're seeing that the trials were anything but safe and effective. And at best, it's faulty, and at worst, it's fraud.
And do you think that the media got behind a great national effort when it came to the vaccine? Is that what they thought they were doing? Essentially, we're locked down, we need to get back to normal. The government's saying the only way we get back to normal is if we vaccinate the whole country, so we need to encourage folk to be vaccinated and feel comfortable being vaccinated. Is that what it was about?
Yeah, I think to begin with, probably, and to some extent, yes, because, I mean, not every individual's the same. But I don't think you can ignore the fact that the government spent, or will have spent, £500 million on advertising.
And this was keeping newspapers afloat.
Which for newspapers in particular.
And a lot of broadcasters
the lifeline, But I'm afraid you also have to look at the ownership. You know, this is where conspiracy theory gets put all over us. But most of the world's biggest companies are owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, and that includes a lot of the media. Bill Gates Foundation puts a fortune into the media, including the BBC's charity. The BBC's own trusted news initiative is a partnership between the BBC and the big tech. And of course, that's also funded by BlackRock and Vanguard and Bill Gates.
So you are
given the fact that Vanguard and BlackRock also own about £35 billion worth of stock in Pfizer, you know, that ownership connection is there. Now, it's not for me to say that's a connection. I don't know. I don't know whether instructions came down, but it's unhealthy, I think, that so much of the media is owned by the same people that are driving the science, is owned by the same people that are making the drugs.
And for those reasons, perhaps it wasn't worth them really going down the path of looking into vaccine damage, looking into the side effects, reporting on myocarditis, for example, in young men. Those sorts of stories you think maybe the mainstream media avoided?
Vaccine damage and the efficacy of vaccines is my biggest bugbear, because still now people are not accepting how many vaccine injuries and deaths there are. I know because I've had a lot of emails from people, and I've interviewed a lot of people, and it's heartbreaking. And you know what's also heartbreaking? The doctors they go to see will not accept it's a vaccine injury. So lots of these people are suffering twice.
And you would think that you would see these people in the media, but you don't. Well, Mark Sharman, absolutely fascinating insight from someone who was one of the top names in news broadcasting in the UK. Thank you so much, Mark. Now, of course, we do give you both sides of the story here on GB News. So defending its pandemic coverage, a BBC spokesperson said, "We believe the level of coverage was proportionate to the importance of the issue and the many aspects to it." Of course. course, though, they didn't really talk about the damage from lockdown, did they, either? There you go. Now, does the MSM only have itself to blame for sparking cynicism of reporting on the war in Ukraine? Well, Baroness Claire Fox has witnessed firsthand the damage COVID hysteria that we've just been discussing with Mark Sharman has done to public trust, and she'll be weighing in on how we maintain free and rational debate when it comes to this crisis that's an uncancelled soon. The next, after a 14-year-old girl died while riding an e-scooter, should these killing machines finally be banished from our roads once and for all? I say absolutely, but I'll get the thoughts of my panel shortly in the Media Buzz, plus more newspaper front pages hot off the press. Stay with us.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Let's return to tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. More front pages just in, and ashes of a dead land is The Guardian's headline. It reports that Russian artillery has unleashed continuous bombardments on the city of Mariupol, which, according to Ukrainian officials, has left the besieged city in ruins. The paper also says between 100 and 200,000 civilians are still hiding in their shelters awaiting rescue. Also on the front page is the news that the Chancellor will stand by working families in his spring statement speech by promising security to cash-strapped Brits while underlining the importance of fixing public finances. I guess if The Guardian's backing him, it backs up the point we made earlier about him becoming a lefty chancellor. The Daily Mail taking a note from my digest and are telling Rishi Sunak that he can spike the hike. Yes, he can. The paper writes that with surging tax revenues, the Chancellor has up to £50 billion to play with, meaning he can delay next month's £12 billion rise, which experts are reportedly calling the worst timed tax in history. Also another look there at the Duchess of Sussex, who had a close encounter with Jaws while diving off the coast of Belize. In The Independent, Kiev claims that Putin's soldiers have illegally deported more than 2,300 children from Donetsk and Luhansk. This follows reports from authorities in Mariupol that thousands of residents had also been deported to Russia. The Times reports Ukrainian soldiers are running out of weapons in their fight against Putin's invasion. The country has urged Germany and France to honour their pledges and send more arms. And the Daily Star makes a stand for Easter Londoners. Dawn Neeson, you'll love this, as it declares you're having a giraffe. It reveals how Cockneys miss out on top jobs because snobs laugh at their accents, aptly accompanied by a picture of EastEnders man Danny Dyer. But Dawn Neeson, it never stopped you.
God blimey, Geeta, no. Look where I am today.
We don't judge. Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid with me too on the Superstar panel. And breaking tonight, a family friend has described their 14-year-old girl tragically killed in East London yesterday after she collided with a van while riding on an e-scooter as a little rainbow of colour and fun. Now, look, this accident, absolute tragedy. And for a long time, people like me have been calling for e-scooters to be banned because they're simply killing machines and we're not ready for them. According to figures from Transport for London, there was just one injury reported in 2017 from e-scooters, but since then, the menacing vehicles have gone completely out of control, as last year, 98 people were badly hurt and 3 people killed. One of those people who died was 20-year-old Shakur Pinnock, and his mother Celine told me on this show how she wanted stricter controls on e-scooters. Astonishingly, the failed London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, decided to put even more people in danger after he approved a pilot scheme in June for e-scooters to become readily available to hire on London's streets. Well, thanks to the scheme, people are now in constant terror along footpaths, thanks to the woke London Mayor, who says they're a more green and sustainable mode of transport. Well, Dawn Neeson, they may be more green. They may be more sustainable, but I walk around the streets of London every day, and let me tell you, they are killing machines. And this poor 14-year-old girl who didn't know how to drive one of these things, killed by a van. But Dawn, I see pedestrians nearly knocked off their feet. I see elderly women nearly knocked off their feet every day by these e-scooter killing machines. So I'm not someone who likes to just ban things, but our infrastructure, our transport infrastructure is not ready for them.
You're quite talking as an elderly woman, thanks Dan, who was nearly knocked over by one of these things the other day. I think they're lethal. I mean, this bloke, huge, one of these huge, it was built like a tank, this thing he was on. He was going really fast on a shared use pathway, and it's in East London, so they're allowed to do that because we're one of the trial boroughs.
But they don't care if they're allowed or not, by the way.
No.
They don't care.
Had earphones on and was came up right behind us like that. And if we hadn't jumped out of the way, if we had been elderly or a little kid, would have been in all sorts of trouble. You get hit behind from one of those things, they are lethal. And did you know that the top speed, I mean, on average, they're meant to go 15 miles an hour, but you can actually buy one that goes 75 miles an hour.
It's terrifying.
I mean, that is just
It's terrifying.
insane.
And Rebecca Reid, the people who ride these killing machines do not respect the rules. So they zip off the road onto the pavement. And honestly, the other day, I was this close to being knocked down by one of these killing machines.
Because I think killing machine is quite a strong way of putting it.
But they have kind of killed people.
But killing, they've not killed more people than they have killed. Like, most of the time it is fine. Okay, so they account for 3% of road accidents at the moment. Now, admittedly, there are a lot more cars and a lot more bicycles than there are e-scooters.
Yes, and it's increasing, Rebecca, by the week.
The issue is that it is
There's an illegal one. Look, just zipping down the footpath doesn't give a damn. They do not respect the rules.
The issue is that it's way too easy to get hold of one. You should have to have a full provisional licence to be able to get one at all, which means you would have to be a minimum of 17 years old. So this 14-year-old girl shouldn't have been on a scooter in the first place. It should not have been possible for her to rent one. And that is the problem. And I think you should be able to have to hold a full, as somebody who doesn't have a full driving licence, I think you should have to have a full driving licence.
I agree. Well, Calvin Robinson, here's the issue. You know, we don't let motorbikes zip down the footpath. Yet for some reason, as a society, we've just accepted, OK, it's fine. These e-scooters that can go up to 75 miles per hour can just zoom down the footpaths now. I mean, I'm nearly knocked every day by one of these mad cyclists, but now it's e-scooters you have to navigate as a pedestrian too. And I know we have people constantly campaigning on behalf of the rights of cyclists, folk like Jeremy Vine. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to stand up for pedestrians because I walk, and actually that is the best mode of transport when it comes to being green. So I walk everywhere. And I'm nearly killed by cars, by motorcycles, by bikes, but it's actually the e-scooters that have no respect for the road rules.
Well, I don't think as civilians or pedestrians we have accepted that anyone can use these things on the pavement. There are trial
but
there are trial boroughs, and the problem here is that we haven't educated people on how to use them properly. So bicycles are just as dangerous. People zip in and out of lorries and stuff, and they're on the pavements when they shouldn't be. But what we do is we go into schools and we teach young people the highway code, and we teach them to wear a helmet, and we teach them how to ride one safely. We could do the same thing with these. I don't like the reactionary, it's safetyism. It's like, it's too dangerous for you to have one. We're going to take them away. And it's ban. It's more conservative government.
But it's making the footpaths impossible.
But we need to make sure the footpaths are safe. We need to make sure that people riding the e-scooters are safe. But to ban them, I think would be...
OK, but Kelvin, you have to accept there is zero chance of the overstretched Met policing this. They're not going to police it. So it's the Wild West. You can create any sort of rules you want around these e-scooters. They will not be policed. You can't even get a cop round to your house in London if someone's just broken in and beaten you up or stolen all of your property. So I'm sorry, the idea that these Wild West e-scooters are going to be policed, they're not.
Let's make the police do their job and let's educate people on how to use these things safely.
And can I just defend cyclists here, speaking as one?
Cyclists are crazy though, aren't they?
If I hit somebody on my bike, which weighs 7 kilograms, I'm really not going to kill them. Someone hitting me on one of those things going...
75 miles per hour,
yeah,
indeed.
Exactly.
Indeed, no, very good point. Now, after watching Europe have all the fun for 66 years and Australia join in too, our pals in the US are finally making their mind. Saw the launch of the first ever stateside version of Eurovision. Stick with me, it's dubbed the American Song Contest, but it is officially Eurovision for America. The extravaganza, presented by the singer Kelly Clarkson and rapper Snoop Dogg, works in much the same way as the competition we all know and love. We all know and love. I'm looking at my superstar panel here, who are Eurovision haters.
This is a joke.
No, it's not a joke because it's so clever, Rebecca. What they do is each of the 50 states, plus 5 US territories and Washington, D.C., submit an entry. And just as the UK has wheeled out the likes of Engelbert Humperdinck and Bonnie Tyler in recent years, the American Song Contest played host to an iconic performer of yesteryear. I can't believe this. I love it. Michael Bolton represented his home state of Connecticut in last night's first heat. And wasn't he good? Oh, he's still got it. Bet he was a former crush of yours, Dawn Neeson.
Do
Michael
me a favour.
Bolton.
You're kidding me. Dan.
Now, sadly, Michael lost the jury vote. He lost the jury vote for a place in the semi-final to Rhode Island's entry, putting his fate in the hands of the American public. Also on the bubble, Wyoming's rapping cowboy Ryan Charles, whose ode to footwear, New Boot Goofin', was the closest the contest has come so far to that patented Eurovision tackiness. I have to say, that is a little far from me. But how amazing. I hope the BBC are going to show this here. Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid. Do stand by, because coming up, it is the crowning moment of the show as we will reveal today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. But next, and uncancelled, does the MSM have itself to blame for sparking cynicism about the war in Ukraine? Well, Baroness Claire Fox joins me in just a few seconds. First, though, here's what's coming up in tomorrow's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, with the cost of living crisis threatening to put the squeeze on Brits and become a major headache for the Tories, I'll bring you all the best analysis of a critical spring statement for Rishi Sunak. Among the big-name politicians and expert commentators joining me, former Chancellor Lord Ken Clarke, former Business Secretary Andrea Leadsom, political firebrand Anne Widdecombe, and the irrepressible Rod Liddle. Plus, making his debut on my superstar panel, one of the most celebrated British political journalists of our time, John Sargent, who'll be joined by Star Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel and political commentator Daisy McAndrew. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And as I said on last night's show, President Zelensky's decision to ban 11 opposition parties and all private TV stations was a disappointing step towards authoritarianism, and he risks losing some Western support if Ukraine ends up resembling the Russian invader. Now, that's a legitimate criticism, even though I have made clear my ultimate disgust for Putin's illegal war. So how do we ensure we still have open and honest debate about the running of Ukraine without giving credence to overly cynical views about the war? And has the government and mainstream media's dishonest COVID hysteria created such distrust among sections of the UK public that people are now more susceptible to Putin's propaganda? Well, to tackle this is Baroness Claire Fox, someone who has also been tackling these moral dilemmas the past fortnight. Good evening, Claire. And I really wanted to talk to you about this because I think we're in the same boat pretty much, which is that we want to be able to have the necessary debates about Zelensky, about Ukraine, about the regime without being accused of being Putin apologists. But at the same time, there's a whole other section of society who believe that this entire war should not be supported because it feels like they've lost so much trust in the authorities and the mainstream media as a result of the COVID debacle.
Yeah, let's try and untangle it a little. I mean,
please.
We have to bear in mind that if you're in Ukraine at the moment, suffering the most intense bombardment and military invasion, that there is at least a valid reason why you might be clamping down on liberties in a different kind of a way. And although I don't want to encourage that, I think that we can't say that it's life as normal, because it's not life as normal there in any circumstances. So it doesn't mean they've gone authoritarian. The second thing, though, is that we should be free in this country to discuss what we think about that. Of course, there should be, we're not at war, and we have to make sure that free speech is not compromised at all in this country, either by things like the ban on Ofcom's ban on RT, Russia Today. We should be free to have as much information as possible, and we should make no compromises on that whatsoever. But, you know, your bigger point, which is the one that I'm struggling with, is I understand that during the lockdown period, there was a real abuse of what was called the war on a virus, and it was called a war on a virus as well. It was a war on COVID, apparently, and that was used as an excuse to close down perfectly legitimate discussion and debate that we should have been able to have in the open. And that made people feel very cynical about the media, everything they saw in the media. They knew that they were being nudged, that they were being manipulated. The problem we've got now is there's a real military war going on, and a lot of people in this country say, I don't believe anything I see on the telly anymore, don't believe any of that nonsense. Is it a war, really? I mean, the number of people who've come up with such mad, some theories that defy geopolitical reality, let's put it that way, and have bent the stick so far that they're prepared to say, oh, well, actually, Ukraine's an authoritarian country just as bad as Russia, so I'm not going to support them. And actually, this is I mean, some people are saying it's a distraction from discussing, you know, the WEF, you know, the Great Reset or what have you. So I do think we've got ourselves into a real mess here, because I think it's hugely important that this war is understood as being the great threat to European, any kind of peace in Europe, not just to Ukraine. It's not about Ukraine and Russia. It's about something much bigger than that.
So how do we deal with folk who have that level of cynicism, Claire? Because, of course, they do have reason over the past 2 years to have mistrusted a lot of what they've been told.
But you have to encourage people that mistrust, when it turns into a kind of nihilistic cynicism, that if somebody says black, you say white, is completely unhelpful to anyone. It's not. It's ignorance. It's not a recipe for enlightenment. We need to read more. We need to know more, and we need to go beyond the dark web or the latest meme or the next conspiracy theory. We need to show a bit of humility and understanding that this is part of a huge historical shift, that actually many of the issues that were not resolved at the end of the Cold War are now coming home to roost, that actually the Yalta Agreement at the end of the Second World War that divided Europe into the free versus unfree East and West is what threatens us now. And that therefore we have to take ourselves more seriously and say we don't have to go nodding along at everything we see in the media. I'm not suggesting that. Be open-minded. But honestly, we make fools of ourselves and underestimate the seriousness of this conflict if we kind of, in a way, childishly say, I refuse to believe anything that I see on the BBC or read in a newspaper just because of what happened with COVID. That makes us actually the lesser. We need to be bigger than that, in my opinion.
I agree. And you only have to look at some of the pictures that we're witnessing now to see the scale of it. Calvin Robinson, our superstar panel earlier this evening, Claire, said that he has some concern about the media's hero worship of President Zelensky. Do you?
Yeah, that's a slightly different question. I mean, you know, give the guy a break in as much as he's gone from being an actor to actually showing some huge bravery in the circumstances.
Yes,
but I do
indeed.
have qualms about that. I'm also, listen, I don't support Ukraine because Ukraine is a lovely country that I like all the values of. I'm fully aware of the fact that there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine because, you know, that's going to be something that's going to be tweeted at me and tell me that I don't understand anything about Ukraine. I've actually followed what's been going on in Ukraine for a long time as it happens and do know a fair amount about it. So I'm not trying to either lionize the country or hero worship Zelensky. But that doesn't mean to say that I don't support Ukraine. I want to make it very clear that Russia launched a full-scale invasion, and whatever one thinks about that, the way that the West has handled anything that happened before that invasion, I think there were serious problems with the way that NATO expansionism happened. I think the things that happened in relation to the lack of diplomacy in the region are all problematic. And so I'm not saying Ukraine's lovely, but we should not justify the invasion of it. That's the point.
No, and you've made it perfectly. Claire Fox, thank you so much. We'll speak soon. But it is time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. Dawn Neeson, who are you nominating as your greatest B?
My greatest Briton is Rachel Blackmore, the first female jockey to win the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Lovely pictures for her today, back home in Ireland with her winning horse and the little Gold Cup.
Calvin Robinson, your nominee.
Their Royal Highnesses Prince William and Kate for strengthening the union between Jamaica and the United Kingdom.
And Rebecca Reid.
Inverting my one from last week, Jeremy Hunt, who made a, I thought, surprisingly thoughtful and self-aware statement today about the Nazanin situation.
Oh, well, I'm going to go with William and Kate there because they're having to deal with all of these horrible folk in Jamaica who are using Meghan's ridiculous words to Oprah to try and slam the royal family, and I think they're going to do a good job there. Union jackass time, Dawn Neeson, your nominee.
I'm going to go for Charlotte Nichols, the Labour MP who supported Leah Thomas for competing against biological women and pretending there is nothing wrong with it in swimming. But then again,
her tweet was cringe, right?
She's a member of the party that doesn't even know what women are, so why am I surprised?
Calvin Robinson.
Facebook for encouraging users to say death to Russians and trying to be the arbiters of morality as well as the arbiters of truth.
Would you say they encouraged it, or would you say they allowed it?
They changed the rules to allow it.
Rebecca Reid.
Anyone using the send her back hashtag about Nazanin today, we don't send people back because we don't like what they say. That's not democracy or nice behaviour.
All good nominees there. I'm going to go with Charlotte Nichols, though. This is the Labour MP who supported Leah Thomas. And it was just bizarre, wasn't it, Dawn? Because she was sort of wanting to big up her own swimming prowess. And I wonder how she would have felt competing against a biological male.
Quite. I mean, absolutely. You do have to question how competitive she was because I used to do a bit of swimming as well, being the right build for it.
Did I? I certainly wasn't the right build for it.
and I think this is grossly unfair on female athletes, no matter what their sport is.
Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm, of course, back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. We'll have all of the reaction to the Rishi Sunak spring budget statement. Headliners is next, though. Thank you so much for your company. Good night.
Hello again. Following Tuesday's warm sunshine, skies remain clear overnight, and that will lead to temperatures dipping away, a chilly night for many. before sunshine returns once again on Wednesday. We're in a very static weather pattern at the moment. High pressure is sitting strongly to the east and keeping low pressure away to the west. In between, a warm southerly airflow is leading to, well, cloud-free skies for many, and it stays that way overnight. But of course, at this time of year, the ground quite quickly loses its heat. We're still looking at a 12-hour nighttime period, and as a result, temperatures dipping close to freezing in a few spots. So chilly starts to Wednesday. One or two fog patches as well, most likely Vale of York, for example, and other parts of northeast and eastern England. But for many, it's a sunny start, and it stays that way through the day. Temperatures rising quickly through the morning, more warmth to come, a bit more of a breeze at times for the far southwest, a bit of patchy cloud here as well, cloud bubbling up elsewhere. But for the vast majority, it's just bright blue skies. It's dry and it's warm. 18 or 19 Celsius, the top temperature. The far north of Scotland, northwest England, North Wales, southeast England as well. So quite a few places seeing that warmth. And then heading into the evening, well, we do it all again under clear skies. Temperatures drop away and a few fog patches will form, but really for most will stay fog-free and frost-free. Temperatures in towns and cities dipping to 4 to 7 Celsius, but really it's in sheltered spots where they'll be closer to freezing. Now, one change on Thursday is that we'll pull in a bit more cloud from the Atlantic across the north and northwest of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. That cloud could contain a few spots of rain, but for the vast majority it's another sunny, dry and warm day. Perhaps not quite as warm as Tuesday and Wednesday, but feeling pleasant in the sunshine nevertheless. Friday's looking remarkably similar, and Saturday is too.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion
and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions